Hello everyone. Today we're going to start on paragraph 26 and we are in chapter 4. So I'm going to get started. It would be hard to find in the history of human culture another edifice of thought which has been built up with greater ingenuity and which on closer analysis collapses into nothing. Let us look a little closer at the way it has been constructed. One starts with what is given in naive consciousness, with the thing as perceived. Then one shows that none of the qualities which we find in this thing would exist for us had we no sense organs, no eye, no color. Therefore, the color is not yet present in that which affects the eye. It arises first through the interaction of the eye and the object. The latter is therefore colorless, but neither is the color in the eye, for in the eye there is only a chemical or physical process, which is first conducted by the optic nerve to the brain, and there initiates another process. Even this is not yet the color. That is only produced in the soul by means of the brain process. Even then, it does not yet enter my consciousness, but is first transferred by the soul to a body in the external world. Thereupon this body, I finally believe myself to perceive it. We have traveled in a complete circle. We became conscious of a colored body. That is the first thing. Here the thought operation starts. If I had no eye, the body would be, for me, colorless. I cannot therefore attribute the color to the body. I start on the search for it. I look for it in the eye, in vain, in the nerve, in vain, in the brain, in vain, once more in the soul. Here I find it indeed, but not attached to the body. I find the colored body again only on returning to my starting point. The circle is completed. I believe that I am cognizing as a product of my soul that which the naive man regards as existing outside him in space. And we had, if you've been keeping track of the previous one, 25, it's kind of a repetition of 25, but we have down for our summary for 26. This idea is circular and collapses upon closer scrutiny. I summarized before 25. Well, basically 26 is just kind of going further into how this theory collapses, and 25 is just about the commonly held view is that our sensations are altered in the process as they are transmitted through our brain to our soul, where they are finally united into a mental picture. The external object has been lost along the way. So it's just repeating that idea. So that's just what 26 is about. I'm going to go on to 27. As long as one stops here, everything seems to fit beautifully, but we must go over the whole thing again from the beginning. Hitherto I have been dealing with something, the external percept, of which from my naive standpoint I have had until now a totally wrong conception. I thought that the percept, just as I perceive it, had objective existence. But now I observe that it disappears together with my mental picture, that it is only a modification of my inner state of soul. Have I, then, any right at all to start from it in my arguments? Can I say of it that it acts on my soul? I must henceforth treat the table, of which formerly I believed that it acted on me and produced a mental picture of itself in me, as itself a mental picture. But from this it follows logically that my sense organs and the processes in them are also merely subjective. I have no right to speak of a real eye, but only my mental picture of the eye. Exactly the same is true of the nerve paths and brain process, and no less of the process in the soul itself, through which things are supposed to be built up out of the chaos of manifold sensations. If, assuming the truth of the first circle of argumentation, I run through the steps of my active cognition once more, the latter reveals itself as a tissue of mental pictures, which as such cannot act on one another. I cannot say that my mental picture of the object acts on my mental picture of the eye, and that from this interaction my mental picture of color results. Nor is it necessary that I should say this, for as soon as I see clearly that my sense organs and their activity, my nerve and soul processes, can also be known to me only through perception, the train of thought, which I have outlined, reveals itself in full absurdity. It is quite true that I can have no percept without the corresponding sense organ, but just as little can I be aware of a sense organ without perception. From the percept of a table I can pass to the eye, which sees it, or the nerves in the skin which touch it. But what takes place in these I can, in turn, learn only from perception. And then I soon notice that there is no trace of similarity between the process which takes place in the eye and the color which I perceive. I cannot eliminate my color percept by pointing to the process which takes place in the eye during this perception. No more can I rediscover the color in the nerve or brain processes. I can only add new percepts, localized within the organism, to the first percept, which the naive man localizes outside his organism. I merely pass from one percept to another. And we have the summary for 27 is, I pass from one percept to another, all within my own organism. The naive person places the first percept outside the self. I'm going to quickly go over what Steiner is trying to say in 26 and 27. 26 is really confusing because what Steiner is talking about is what a common argument is on how we come to know the world. And basically, this common idea that was believed by certain philosophers is that, okay, let's say I see a red table. If I had no eyes, then I wouldn't see the color. And so the argument goes, okay, where do I find the color? So the color arises through the interaction of the eyes and the objects. And then these philosophers would search for this quality of color, and they can't find it in various places or whatnot, but they find it in basically what 26 is pointing out is just the whole thought process of this philosophy, not Steiner's philosophy, but of this. It's known as critical idealism, but he doesn't talk about it until the end of this chapter. But they'll look for color in the soul, but they don't find it, that it's attached there, and then they finally believe that the soul transfers it to a body in the external world. So if you're confused by 26, it's probably within good reason, because he's just explaining what this philosophy believes, that how we know the world. If it hurts my head, so you know what, it's understandable if it hurts your head, okay? And in 27, what Steiner is basically saying is that this whole argument is absolutely absurd, because the fact is that your sense organs and the activities that they perceive, like soul processes, nerves, etc., this can only be known through perception or through observation. So it's supporting his whole idea is that the pillars of how we know is through knowledge, and the pillars are observation and thinking, because you can't this whole thing, I can't, they're arguing, I perceive table, and I can't perceive color, where does this, it's like, well, you know what, the bottom line is that information is gained through observation. So observation, again, Steiner's pointing out, presupposes what all of these people are talking about. So that's observation is the starting point. That's basically what he's arguing here. It's very confusing if you're not really familiar with the various philosophical thoughts on how we know the world. And I really don't think we need to know too much about it, but just if you're confused, it's perfectly reasonable, because I'm confused by it. But that's the bottom line, is that he's arguing that, well, all of this argument is absurd because you're using your sense organs to come to this conclusion, thereby supporting his whole belief on observation is the first pillar of knowledge. So that's about it. Thank you, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.